These are 7 expert tips you need to know if you want to PvP better and win more fights in Modern Warfare 2 DMZ. And if you want more DMZ tips, tricks, and guides, make sure to sub to this channel. The first thing I have to say, and this goes before any of the 7 tips, the most important thing you need to know about DMZ is knowledge is power. Fighting in DMZ is not all about gun skill, and if you came here to learn tips and tricks about what attachments to put on your guns or how to shoot better, this is not the video for you. In this video, I'm going to go through the things you need to know about how to take fights in DMZ so you can have a better understanding about things like positioning, utility, and preparedness of you and your squad to take fights. But overall, I think these tips are super necessary for anybody who wants to play DMZ and wants to win more fights and stop dying to other operators. Tip number 1 is to learn the spawn points around the map. On screen here, you can see a map of all the spawn points in DMZ. Now, some of these, as you can see, this is from guided.news, the website. So some of these are ones that have been found by other people. Some of these have been found by them. But these are a bunch of the spawn points you can find around the map. And depending on when you're watching this video, these can be changed. Knowing where other teams spawn, or at least having a somewhat awareness of where other teams might be when the game first starts, is super important to surviving. So as you can see, most spawn points are along the outskirts of the map, and from my experience, Al Mazrah City, Hafidport, and Sawa Village tend to be hot points when it comes to the early minutes of the game. And with some spawn points, you can actually see other players. If you have a spotter scope or a high magnification sight, you can actually see other players right when you spawn in. So it's important to have an idea of where other players might be spawning so you won't get caught off guard super early in the game by other teams. Number 2 is to be alert to your surroundings. I can't tell you how many times my squad and I have just jumped off a roof and parachuted into another team, or reacted too late when a vehicle drives by and gotten ourselves killed. You can actually hear enemy vehicles before they appear on your minimap, so this is super important, especially if you play with a headset. You can hear enemy vehicles coming before they're going to show up on your map so you can get ready. If you're up on a cliff or you're on a tall building, make sure you scout the area for a few seconds before you jump down, especially while you're falling through the air and you're parachuting. You are a very easy target and you can't shoot back. So just take a few seconds and look around. And you can also see and hear gunfire around the map. So if you're driving around or moving to a new area and you see gunfire flying by, or you hear shots up ahead, this likely means there are other operators either fighting AI or other players in that area. So as long as you're aware to your surroundings and listening and you're looking for visuals that'll give you ideas to where other players are, this will help you greatly in not being caught off guard. Tip number 3 is to have a weapon you are good with in your loadout at all times. Obviously, I know DMZ is a great way to get weapon XP and to level up your gun, but I really do recommend having a gun, whether it's your insured gun or contraband weapon, that you're really good with or at least comfortable using so you can stand a chance in a fight. If you have 2 weapons on you that they're either really bad weapons or maybe weapons that you never really use, it's going to be really hard to win a gunfight against other players, because a lot of the time you're going to probably run into players that are using weaponry that they brought in with them, whether it's an insured weapon or a contraband weapon that they're good with, because as you know, in DMZ, if you die, you lose everything. So people want to come in fully loaded out. Number 3 is don't just run towards a team without some sort of thought or coordination. I know a lot of people who are playing DMZ, or at least trying it, have come from Warzone, and DMZ is very different from Warzone. It's not like in Warzone where if you die, you can go try to win your gulag and spawn back in. In DMZ, if you die, especially if you're solo, it's very hard to get rezzed. Well, obviously, if you're solo, you can't get rezzed at all. But even if you are in a squad, whether it be with randoms or people you're partied up with, getting rezzed in DMZ takes a very long time. So if you're partied up in a squad, communicate with your teammates, preferably, via Discord or some other third-party chat so other teams don't hear you in proximity chat, and coordinate your push together. If you are solo or you're playing with randoms, you can utilize the ping system to try and, get some coordination. If you are solo and you are going towards a team, whether you want to fight or you're trying to avoid them, just make sure you're thinking about your approach, making sure you're aware of your surroundings. What cover do you have? What routes could you take that could get you around them if you don't want to be spotted? And tip number 5, somewhat similar to number 4, is don't just run out and fight because your teammate gets knocked or killed. Winning a 2v3 or even a 1v3 fight in DMZ is very doable. I have done it and I know it can happen, but it's way harder if you just run out in the open or around a corner where your teammate died and try to fight all 3 enemies head on. A good sniper shot or a clip of your AR is enough to knock someone in DMZ, and then you can strike harder when the playing field is more even. And a lot of taking fights in DMZ, you can utilize the psychology of players against them. So I don't know if you've ever noticed this, that where your teammate gets a knock knock on an enemy team, your first instinct is to sprint towards them and try to finish the kill or kill the other enemies of the knocked teammate. And a lot of the time you forget about re-upping on your armor plates or letting yourself heal. And I think this goes for all FPS games, right? And all FPS players, whether you be playing DMZ or Warzone or Apex or Fortnite, whatever it might be. It's instinctual for us to want to push the fight after cracking or knocking an enemy. That adrenaline really gets going in you because you know you have an advantage in the fight. It makes you act quickly and sometimes it makes you act stupid. So just know if your teammate gets knocked, the other team is likely feeling that adrenaline, feeling that, oh man, we really got to push this team. So sometimes you can just sit there and they're going to come sprinting right at you, whether it be out in the open or through a doorway that you're waiting behind. Having that knowledge of the psychology of an enemy player that just knocked or killed your teammate is super important because a lot of the time they're going to act rash and they're not going to think. Tip number 6 is about UAVs. If you have a UAV, make sure you are using it to push and fight. Don't just pop it and sit there for the intel. Obviously, you're not always going to know if enemies are around you when you pop a UAV. Sometimes you do just want to use it for intel, especially if you have more than one. But if you haven't noticed, UAVs expire pretty quick in DMZ, so making sure you're using them for more than just intel is super, super important. If you're in a fight with an enemy team and you or a teammate has a UAV available, make sure when you use it, you push the enemy. Because for about 30 seconds or so, you're going to know where the enemies are and they're not going to know where you are. Plus, there is no ghost perk in DMZ, so UAV is always going to be utilized. Just look for those solid red dots on your minimap. The hollow ones are AI. But make the most of your UAVs, and if you are near a buy station, check it out, see if you can buy a UAV. It is pretty much one of the most useful things you can have in DMZ. And tip number 7, last but not least, is utilize vehicles. I know I said earlier that you can hear vehicles from enemies before they even show up on your minimap. So obviously there is a risk to using vehicles, but for me personally, I think they're super underrated. A lot of people think they give you, they put you at a disadvantage because they can be seen and heard and, people are going to know where you're at. For one, it's harder to hit you when you're in a moving vehicle, right? Not only are you moving at a speed faster than a player can run, but also, you're in a vehicle. So depending on the armor of the vehicle or what, if the vehicle has doors or not, it's going to make it harder to hit you. It's also very rare that you're going to get knocked out of a moving vehicle unless, the enemy player has really good aim or you're already weak. Secondly, you can use a vehicle to escape if you need to, right? You can use this to back away and heal and go back in, or you can just leave a fight. Personally, for me, there is no shame in running from a fight. I think this is the common misconception when it comes to things like DMZ or battle royales in general. People think, oh, if you run from a fight, like you're being a wimp, like you shouldn't run from fights. One of the hardest skills to learn in any PvP game, but especially in a thing like DMZ, is knowing when to back up and heal and knowing when to stay and fight. Like I said right in the beginning of the video, knowledge is power in DMZ. When you have an understanding of how the game mode works, an understanding of your surroundings, how other players think, this is really going to give you the advantage because brains are always going to beat brawn, especially in the game mode like DMZ. If they have better aim than you, you just have to learn how to get them without them having a chance to shoot back, right? So making sure you're utilizing everything to your advantage is super important. And another little tip about utilizing vehicles is enemy players will probably shoot at you, especially if you're within somewhat of a reasonable vicinity of them. So when they shoot at you, they're going to give up their position. So now you know whereabouts they are, and you're also in a moving vehicle, so you can quickly reposition. At the end of the day, one of the things to really remember is in a game like DMZ or any battle royale, any looter extraction mode, you're not going to win every fight, right? It's impossible for you to win every fight. Sometimes a team will sneak up on you. There's going to be no way for you to have known they were coming. It's going to happen, and you just have to be okay with that. But just know implementing tips like these can really make you a better player, especially when it comes to PvP. And I can speak from experience here by saying, I've killed way more players than have killed me. I probably only died between 5 and 10 times from other players throughout this whole 3 weeks DMZ has been out. The more you play DMZ, the better you are going to get. So if you are new to DMZ, new to Call of Duty, new to this type of game genre, just know, keep grinding now and you will get better. And make sure to sub to the channel for more tips, tricks, and guides like these videos so I can help you get better as well. If you enjoyed this video or you learned anything from it, make sure to leave a like. If you have any PvP tips that I didn't cover in this video, drop it down below in the comments and I'll pin one of the best ones. And with that being said, hopefully I will see you all in the next video.